We are nearing the end of Matt James' season of The Bachelor, and with hometowns over and things headed to fantasy suites, it's time for our usual break in the action with the Women Tell All, where all our favorite ladies are going to get together to hash out all the drama from the season, and some might even be auditioning for the next Bachelorette, which we'll talk a bit about in this video. And alongside the preview for the Tell All next week, we also get some fantasy suite footage to sleuth out, so let's take a look at this preview and piece together what the remainder of the season looks like, and speculate on the final two and Matt's final rose pick. And as per usual, please no posting outright spoilers in the comment section below unless you have some savvy preview sleuthing to dish out, and if you want to watch the full preview beforehand, I'll leave a link to that in the description.
It's a shocking Women Tell All.
It's just hard to hear yourself being called a hoe, an idiot, or a shady bitch.
Some of you can't accept what it was that you did in the house.
So the first thing that needs to be mentioned is that this Women Tell All was pre-taped, and it was pre-taped before the Chris Harrison and Rachel apologies came out. So nothing in terms of him or what went down during the extra interview with Rachel Lindsay is going to be addressed. At most, they might put a disclaimer at the beginning of the episode, like some shows do when there's controversy going on outside of what was taped for the season.
All of your favorite women from this season are back.
I didn't sign up to get my name slandered.
You called her a high-end escort.
I was angry.
And
So we're going to be headed back into the escort drama, and it also looks like Brittany will be getting one of the hot seats for the evening. Also, from this preview edit so far, it looks like Katie is going to be getting a lot of attention. She's one of the names that people have been throwing around for Bachelorette, and it's common for the tell-all to be a sort of audition for the next lead. Now, that doesn't mean someone from the tell-all is definitely going to get the job, but it can be an indication of what's to come.
That's fake as hell.
plus, Matt returns to face the women that went home.
Now here we're getting into some heavy sleuthing, as if you look closely right there, you can see that Matt has given up and is sporting an unkept beard. But in his defense, there is a pandemic going on, and I wouldn't have blamed him if he came out in his pajamas he'd been wearing for 5 days in a row. We've all been there. Right? Right? I'm not the only one?
I care about him still so much.
Is there any part of you that thinks maybe I made the wrong call?
And then,
And here we can see Serena P with one of the other hot seat segments, which makes sense considering her hometown exit. I'd also not be surprised to see Abigail get a sit-down interview, as she too has had her name put out for the next lead. As I mentioned before, how this tell-all is put together could be an indication for who they want to be the next Bachelorette, and at this point, I'd say Abigail, Katie, and Michelle, if she doesn't end up with Matt, have been receiving the best edits for the job while also having a largely positive public perception. Of course, this could all change in a moment as the show is figuring out how they want to respond to all the Chris Harrison stuff. But for now, those three women are who I feel the show might be looking at. But let's now move on into the fantasy suite section of the preview.
in 2 weeks, Matt's journey to find love continues.
I'm about to make one of the most important decisions of my life.
Each time that I get to spend with you, it gets better and better.
Yes, it will be 2 weeks before we get to the full Fantasy Suite episode, with the tell-all happening next week. But I'm certain there will still be a teaser thrown in for the season at the tell-all. As for Fantasy Suites, we can now confirm that this footage we speculated all the way back in the early season previews with Brie is her actually on that Fantasy Suite. We also get a look at another bit of Fantasy Suite footage with Rachel that looks like it's a match to this section from, yet again, the season preview.
I do acknowledge color in every sense. At the end of the day, like, love is love. It doesn't matter what it looks like.
Check out Rachel's red dress and Matt's tie. Matches with what they're wearing in this scene right here. Now then, the preview moves on to a very interesting little moment with Matt picking up a ring. Let's take another look at it. It's very short.
Matt's journey to find love continues.
Now this is fueling my conspiracy brain and getting my tinfoil hat all sorts of tingling. So back in the initial season preview, there's this section where Matt is waiting with a ring at what looks to be the location of his final rose ceremony. But when this came out, I also felt like something unusual was going on, as there was no Neil Lane logo in the ring box. Compare that to when Zach proposed to Tayshia, and you've got that product placement on blast. Made me feel as though this was possibly staged. Now add to that this footage. What's strange here is that the ring Matt is holding has a band swirling with diamonds. This ring, however, does not. So the tinfoil hat conspiracy is, could this be a staged final rose ceremony with a ring to make it seem like Matt proposes? And to that I say, maybe. Now, of course, this could be Matt looking at one of many rings. We can see what I guess is Neil Lane in the background here presenting Matt with a few options. It's totally possible that he picks this ring up and says no, and then picks this ring up and says, okay, alrighty then, this is the one. But still, I can't help but feel like something fishy is going on with these shots. And with how much of the screen time this season has been focused on the drama and not the romance, I wonder if it could have been edited that way because, well, there is no happy ending. There was no romance the editors wanted to build towards all season because Matt James is alone at the end or doesn't propose. Tell me if I'm wrong, but the buildup of romance between Matt and the final three has been either very sudden or non-existent, and it's possible that things have been edited this way for a reason. Of course, there's plausible deniability to all of this, but whatever it is, as I said at the beginning of the season, something just feels off about this final rose ceremony. But let's move on and get back to this preview.
I'm in love with Matt. People fall in and out of love, and love is not the end-all be-all.
It's gonna be the most difficult decision I've ever made.
So here we finally get to see that milk bath date with Michelle that we've used in the last few breakdowns to speculate Michelle was going to stick around until the end. And this isn't even the last bit of footage from Michelle in the previews. We still have a segment with the two of them in a pool to get to, and that could indicate she's making it even farther than Fantasy Suite Week.
My heart's in pieces.
I'm in love with Matt. And he's with another woman right now.
The classic jealousy edit. It seems to roll its head around almost every season. They're going to use this as a setup to what I believe is a fake out with Rachel in the next bit. But what's more likely a cause for concern is Michelle here because this cry looks really nasty. Like a bad cry. Of course, we have no clue what the context is, and I'll say it's definitely not from a rose ceremony, but this seems far more dramatic to me than a potential Fantasy Suite jealousy edit.
I can't do this anymore.
I feel like everything that I was working towards is starting to crumble.
You okay?
No.
And this is the event that everything seems to be building up towards. It was teased very early on in the season previews, and now it's here. The true context of what's going on is impossible to know exactly, but the preview is almost implying that Rachel gets jealous or upset and then leaves, leaving Matt to say things are not okay. He's also sitting on the side of a road, which could imply he just sent someone home. Now, again, we don't know for sure what this could all be. Like in Tayshia's season, she had a huge cry in the previews that eventually was about Blake, which seemed to come out of nowhere. But I also don't quite buy that this could be Rachel self-eliminating. If anyone self-eliminates of the three, I'd say that's more likely to be Bree. Last episode, they ended Bree's segment of the show on this note.
There's just something a little bit disheartening knowing that I got the last rose. I can't help but just wonder where Matt's head is at.
That could be setting us up for a breakup. And in my opinion, of the edits we've seen from the three women, Bree has had less romantic focus than Michelle or Rachel. But let's take a look at this last bit of footage before we speculate on eliminations.
Do you know if you can do this anymore?
To be honest with you, I don't know, Chris.
And this is where the preview ends, on a devastated Matt who might not be able to go forward. And an interesting note here, this crying shot of Matt, is the same footage they used in the last episode when Serena P self-eliminated. Makes me believe that Serena's elimination might not have been as bad as what the show made it out to be. Check out Matt driving away from Serena in the car and his sweater, then back here to the crying shot, different sweater. But this sweater? Looks like the same one Matt is wearing here, shows you how the editors can move around footage to get the exact narrative they want. But still, that means that whatever happens here really hits Matt hard. Is it a self-elimination? Is it someone coming back? Is it just a simple breakup? I really can't tell you. But whatever happens, I do have an indication of who is heading home next. Bree. She feels like the odd woman out when it comes down to the final three. Add to that the setup we got from the end of the last episode, she's had the least amount of screen time of the final 3, and if she does have a strong connection with Matt, the editors don't seem to be showcasing it in the same way they are with Michelle and Rachel, and I think it's fairly clear. Not to mention, there's still footage of Michelle on a one-on-one to be seen, which yes, could be from the Fantasy Suite week, but also, could not. And to get a little meta here, with how ABC and production are handling the antebellum Rachel situation, it makes me feel as though she at least makes it to the final 2, on top of all the other indications that Matt is more serious about her than Bree.
I really am already completely falling in love with you.
Rachel, I'm falling in love with you too.
I'm falling in love with you.
Thank you for sharing that with me tonight.
But as for this moment, or how we get to the final 2, or if Matt actually even has a final rose ceremony, we're going to have to wait to see. But boy, is this season really not looking to end well. So that's it for this preview breakdown for the Women Tell All and Fantasy Suites. I hope you enjoyed the video, and make sure to give it a like if you did, and subscribe for more content as we cover the episode to come next week, and of course any new preview footage on the way. So until then, Bachelor Fan Take, out.
I feel like everything that I was working towards is starting to crumble.
You okay?
No. No, I'm not.